like an expert, and indeed, he is a seasoned agricultural consultant with over 4 decades of experience in crop production, agronomy, and agricultural development across Jamaica, with academic credentials including a Master of Science, that's why I'm talking so much, in project management, and a Bachelor of Science in agriculture. Mr. McPherson has held leadership roles in both public and private sector organizations, including the Jamaica Medical Cannabis Corporation, RADA, and the Jamaica Agricultural Society. A dedicated advocate for modern, sustainable farming practices, he currently leads agricultural development solutions and serves as a technical advisor to the Jamaica Greenhouse Growers Association. So he is an expert, after all. Give him a big round of applause, please. And because he's an expert, he brought his own apparatus to support his presentation, all right? And in fact, this one is going to be very interesting because there's going to be a point in which when he's done inside here, he's going to be taking us on the outside for even more. All right, sir, here you go.
All right, thank you very much. I am hoping that when I was younger, I used to be a pace bowler. I used to come on early, but I'm not used to bowling at the tail end. So I hope I'll do justice to it. All right, we'll be looking at the management of vegetable seedling production. The moderator said you will have many questions. The presentation will be so straightforward and simple, but you won't have many questions. Questions will have been answered. Could you move to the first slide, please? We start with a definition. What is seedling management production? And it's a process. It's a process. It's more than just pulling up a seedling from a seed bed behind the kitchen and take it to the field and plant it and pray and hope that it comes. It's a process of ensuring the production of vigorous vegetable seedlings that are well developed, free of pests, diseases, and weed seeds, possessing the potential for production of high and sustainable yields of high quality vegetables with shelf life. The fact of the matter is that this is, to my mind, the most important stage of crop production. Because if you start off with a wishy-washy seedling, no matter how you flag it with essential nutrients, no matter what sort of pest and disease management you put onto it, at the end of the day, you're going to get a low yield. Right? So every farmer should try, it's a production process. And your output, there's a nexus that is inextricable between the input, the quality of the input, and the quality of the output. I think back in the day when they were introducing computing, there's a garbage in, garbage out, basically the same thing. So it's very important that you start with a vigorous seedling, and I'm going to show you what a vigorous seedling look like, and as well as walking you through some of the processes. We'll also show you some bad-looking seedlings, and we'll also show you some seedling trays that farmers should not be using, and tell you why, and we'll show you some that you should be using, and I'll also tell you why. Next slide. So what are some of the factors that you consider? No, man, just bring up everything. It has I'd say to bring everything on the board. All right, when you're looking to establish a nursery, what are some of the factors that you look for? First, you need a market. The first thing you need to look at before you start to produce seedlings, the market. Where are you going to sell them? Seedlings come to market depending between 2 to 6 weeks, depending on the crop type. So before you touch anything, before you buy your first set of seed tray or you get your growing media, you need to know where you're going to be selling the seedlings. You need to ensure that the location is conducive to the production of good quality. You don't want to put your seedlings in an area that is prone to, and the nursery area is prone to flooding, right? An area that is too far from wherever you intend to sell them. The size of the market, right, that is going to determine how many thousand seedlings you produce. Because if you produce them and you don't have any market for them, you probably could call one of the news media and say, boy, you produce the seedlings and you can't find a market for them. And that's what some farmers do when they produce crops without first talking to the marketing managers, and they don't know where they're going to sell them, but they grow them nonetheless. And when they don't come, they call a TV station to give them. All right, you need to know what sort of demand. Yeah, you can't just produce. In Central America, specifically in Costa Rica, where they take agriculture a little serious than we do, unfortunately. Most nurserymen don't start to produce until he gets an order and a deposit, and non-refundable deposit. All right? So you'd want to have your nursery in close proximity and easy access to utilities, the water, the light. You might have to run some pumps. You need good quality water. Water is the lifeblood of crop production, right? And you want to be able to access the facility and that your customers can access you easily. Next slide, please. Well, of course, that you have labor and market. Well, what are some of the, you load up everything, because I did set it for an animated thing, but that I wouldn't move in them myself. But all right, what are the site characteristics? You want to have it on gentle sloping land, free draining soil. You don't want, in cases where you get a deluge, you get an influx of excess water from every rainfall, that the water create problems for you. So you want the soil to be free draining. You want to make sure that your nursery area is protected from heavy winds and the site is not prone to flooding. Of course, in terms of water, you need to have seedlings going to require 0.3 to 0.2 to 0.3 liters per seedling per day when they develop. And of course, you want a water that is slightly acidic. Fact is that basic water negatively affect the uptake of nutrients. And if the nutrients that you're feeding to the plants are not being taken up by the plant efficiently, then you won't get a strong, vigorous seedlings. So what are some of the characteristics of, well, back in the day, and some farmers still do, you make a little seed bed and you sprinkle some 7 wet hands from taking them away, taking the seeds away. You cover it with coconut limb or newspaper, and when the plants reach a certain height, you pull them out, what they call bare root plants, plants that are, you have to transplant them in the evenings when, and probably have to shade them, and then you have to go back and supply because 50% of them don't take. We're advocating the use of plug seedlings. Seedlings, what I mean by plug seedlings? Seedlings that are produced in in seedling trays. Right? And we are saying that you should be using sterile growing media. Most of the available germination or propagation media that are available have nice, finely divided material that have been treated to some of them temperatures as high as 1700 degrees Fahrenheit in order to rid them of pathogens, soil-borne pathogens. Usually the seedlings that you produce in these trays, not all the time, but what we have up there is what is the ideal. What is producing these don't normally fit, they don't fit the bill. They're the nurseryman's pride and joy because they sell you the seedlings. They sell you by per seedling. And this one will 200. Right? This one will 108. Now, it's the same area, they're the same size. So you have 200 seedlings developing in the same space where you have, in fact, my recommendation, if you're doing fruit vegetables, it should be down to 72. Fruit vegetables means sweet pepper, tomatoes, cucumbers, squash, watermelon, those kind of things. If you're doing these, I'm putting them down. Just in case you think I'm promoting. These 105 will be good for leafy vegetables, the cabbage and the lettuce and the pak chai and the celery and those things, right? Cauliflower, broccoli. All right, so you grow them in these trays in a sterile growing media. When they reach, in the case of tomatoes and lettuce and these things, when they reach 3 to 4 weeks, that's when they should be, if they're being grown properly, they should reach the stage to be removed. And in the case of peppers take a little longer time, as you all know, 6 weeks for peppers. You take them out, and they're supposed to fit the bill. They're healthy, uniform, and vigorous. They're easily transported long distances. You have these, you irrigate them the morning of the transplant, and you could transport them from here to anywhere in Jamaica. And when you arrive, they're in good conditions. And they don't suffer from transport shock as the bare root seedlings would be. And you're able to plant throughout the day. You don't get no substantial losses of seedlings, and therefore you don't have to go and supply. And seeds are very expensive. When you go up to the superstore, you could inquire the price for some of the hybrid seeds that they have there, and you realize that seeds are very expensive. So you get a vigorous plant with a good root system, earlier establishment, earlier food production, and higher crop yields. So we're using the 105 for the leafy vegetables, and we're using the 75 for the fruit vegetables. Next slide. So what are some of the things that you need to consider? Bring up everything. Press it until you get nothing more. No, go back. Yeah. All right. I have another slide to do with considerations. First and foremost, so a very important consideration is the variety that you're producing. You don't produce some sweet pepper or some tomatoes. All right? You produce the varieties that the market wants. So if the market wants a yellow sweet pepper, no matter how pretty the red ones are, or the white ones, or the purple ones, or the various colors that sweet peppers come in, or if you produce, if the market, if the farmer's market is the fast food don't want a tomato that when give you a couple of slices per pound. They want a medium tomato that you can get many slices. Right? They also have tomatoes in varying colors. It is the characteristic that the market want that you the quality of the seed. It can be overestimated that the quality of the seed will directly impact the quality of the seedling you produce. Right? And yes, you select. Some people go to the dumpster in Coronation Market after market close and wash out some seeds and plant it. Right? It might grow, it might come, but it can't give you the sort of quality output that you would get from a properly selected and bred F1 hybrid. Right? I heard an argument about, well, what I was there about selecting seed and washing out seeds. Yes, some farmers do it, and some farmers, they do it. But what I need to tell you is that their yield using the same amount of inputs might turn out to be 60-70% of the yield that you would get if you had gone and selected good quality seeds. The fact is that sometime when you wash out seeds, and Upton was explaining that if it's a hybrid and you wash it out and plant it, you won't get the same results as if you had used good quality seeds, because usually they might select two parents. One parent might have some desirable trait, and the other parent might have good yield potential. Right? You have a thing named segregation and reversion in genetics. And once you go beyond the F1 hybrids, you're going to get regression and reversion. I can remember there was a farmer out in Cheapside in St. Elizabeth that planted, he washed out, I think it's an Adonis tomato, and he selected the seeds and he planted them, and they grew well, and he planted them out in the field, and bearing was not bad, right? But believe me, Adonis was bred using a yellow tomato and a red tomato. And 50%, that man shall remain nameless, but he used to be one of my colleagues when I was at RADA. He washed out the seeds, and when harvest time came, nearly roughly 50% of the tomatoes were yellow. Right? You will also find that some of the tomatoes will go back to it might have the desirable traits, but the yield is not there. And so if you get 60%, technically you're sacrificing 40% of your production potential for the price of a pack of seed. Right? And I don't think it's a wise thing to do. All right. So seed quality is very important. There are, could you run it to the next slide, please? All right, so these are the different factors. No, go back. Go on, proceed. These are the different considerations dealing with variety. All right, when you're selecting now a crop variety, press it, load the screen. The factors that the growers look for are plant vigor. You want a plant that is vigorous, good growth rate, that tolerate diseases. Fruits are hardy, take a relatively short time to maturity, and give high crop yields. Next slide. The market, looking for color, texture, size, taste, shape, and shelf life. And it is the extent to which the grower can satisfy these requirements with whatever he's growing. While he's satisfying what he's looking for, those criteria he's looking for, these are the criteria that he has to satisfy, because at the end of the day, it is the market demand that's going to dictate what happens. Because as we said before, if you grow them, you can't sell them, you might end up feeding them to pigs, but you still don't make no money. All right? So it is always wise to select your varieties carefully. Next slide. In terms of seed handling and storage, a lot of times, you buy the seed and the seed don't germinate properly, and the reason is because of how the seeds are handled. You should not exceed 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Once you procure the seed, in fact, in many cases, from in the farm store, the seeds start to suffer because the farm store people don't really keep the seeds at the recommended temperatures, so they start to deteriorate and degenerate from then. But ideally, you should not exceed 50 degrees Fahrenheit and 40 to 45% relative humidity in order to maintain. The seed should not be left in adverse places such as in the greenhouse, pickup trucks, and the dashboard to get overheated. Once the packet is open, seed should be stored in a cool, dry place, example, a refrigerator. No smoking or handling of tobacco products by persons handling seed. Anybody can tell me a reason for that? They have tobacco mosaic, somebody says TMV, tobacco mosaic virus, they have tobacco blue mold virus, and tobacco tomato spotted wilt virus. There are 3 dangerous seed-borne diseases. Some of them can persist for long times, and if a person was handling a cigarette that had any of these pathogens attached to them, and they come to work and wash their hands, and that is why the first step to the practical, what we're going to be doing this afternoon, hand washing. You need to wash your hands with a no, but them not for work for you. You can decide who will work for you. No, I soon come to that. No, you see, that is because, you know why I say that? Because if you run him, the man, they will take him up and employ him. But if all of the farmers decide that we don't deal with no smoking, because many times, sometimes you see a plant out there struggling, or some plant struggling, and some people say maybe nutrients, maybe is water, the plants are infected before it germinates, because somebody who had one of these persistent viruses on their hands handle the seed. And their seed born, they carry it. Right? And like tobacco mosaic virus can persist on for up to over 2 years on dry tobacco. And a person handling a cigarette made with infected tobacco will come to your farm and bring the thing. And that is why you use antibacterial, some germicidal soap as a biosecurity measure to wash hands. Right? And that is why no smoking. And, well, it says that. Workers to thoroughly wash hands using soap and water before handling seed. Next slide. All right. We're looking at seed quality. There are really 3 aspects to the quality of seeds. The genetic quality. Whether or not the seed that you're working with have what is called genetic superiority, will produce true to type of hybrid vigor. 2, physical quality, whether or not the seed is sound or free of pests and seed-borne diseases. And 3, physiological quality, whether the seed is viable and a vigor, whether it is fresh or still dated. And these have implications for the final yield that you're going to get. In fact, when you go to a farm store to buy seeds, the first thing you should look at is germination date, test date. The test date. And as a safeguard, maybe you shouldn't go beyond 1 year after the data test. Because on that label, the manufacturer is going to tell you things like germination percentage, right? Viability. And the germination percentage is going to be based on what they obtain at the test. So when you go in 1 year outside of the date of the test, so if I tell you 85%, right? Maybe if you go, that is if they're fresh. If you go a year after, you might probably end up with 80% germination. And that means that you'd have to buy more seeds in order to complete the area that you intend to plant. Next slide. All right. This is the seed label. And I can't safely tell you, I can say here, based on my experience, that most farmers don't really bother with this, but this is what will tell you what you're getting, right? And these are 2 hybrid tomato, 2 F1 tomato. One is processing and one is table. But the fact of the matter is that it has batch number, the item number, it tells you the test date, the purity, the amount of seeds that's present, and germination percentage, right? So you need to know, it says purity 98%. What it means is that it's only 99, they only get warranting 99%, 98% of whatever is in the package to be a tomato of the variety that you're getting. So often you guys plant tomatoes, sweet peppers, and other crops, and you get 1 or 2 something else popping up, right? And that is because they're not telling you that it's 100% pure. They're telling you it's 99% purity. Next slide. But you need to read the label. You need to read the label in order for you to get good quality seeds, which if properly handled, will give you excellent seedling vigor, high plant populations, high productivity, and as we said before, use of F2 and later generations. You can use them, they'll come and bear, but they're not yielding. You're not maximizing your return. And a pack of seed, that's another thing. A lot of time farmers will tell you, boy, seed expensive. If you look at what that means, there's some hybrid tomato seeds, they'll tell you it's $40,000 per pack. What, tell me that? 109. Yeah, $109,000 for 1,000 seeds? Huh? No, well, I'm talking, yeah. 109 for 3,000, that is what, $34 per. Yeah, but the point I'm getting at is that, and I'm using the example of $40,000 per pack. For 1,000 seed, it only costs you $40 per seed. Right? If you even get 80% germination, right? You get 800 divided by 40,000 divided by 800. Some of the maths brain report that for me now. Right? But what I'm trying to say is that trying to save on the price of the seeds by jeopardizing your production, not worth it, right? And the seeds are not all that expensive, because if you buy a tomato seed at $50 per one, meaning the ones that germinate and become, the first pound of tomato you sell, pay for the plant, and that plant have the potential to yield several more pounds. So seeds, just like fertilizer, should not be looked at as an expense. It's an investment. Any input that can turn you multiples of what it costs you should not be seen as an expense. It's actually an investment in your business. Right? Some of these hybrid tomatoes in greenhouses, they get 10 pounds per plant for the cycle. The first pound, pay for the seed, pay for the plant, and you have 9 pounds to go towards your covering your other expenses and go towards the bottom line. So it doesn't make sense to risk planting a seed that is handicapped. It's not going to give you the kind of return that you want in investment. It might be infected by disease organisms. Next slide. Sorry. Go back. Yeah, go back. Next slide. You're right. And as I told you, this officer, this colleague of mine in St. Elizabeth, he got a decent yield, but he couldn't sell 50% of whatever he produced. All right? I don't know if any of you inside are making margins of 50% or more, but if you produce some washout seed Adonis as he did and got the outcome that he did, you would have lost. Because there's nowhere in Jamaica you can sell a yellow tomato. Right? And he had 50% of his field coming out yellow. All right. So the ideal characteristics of a vigorous seedling. supposed to be compact, strong, and with strong and thick stems, dark green leaf coloration, good, well-developed root system, free of pests and diseases, with a compact root plug, have 4 to 6 true leaves, and 4 to 6 true leaves is the stage where most seedlings should be removed. Sometimes they remove earlier, sometimes they remove later, but the results are not as good as if you observe and have the cotyledons attached. Next slide. Yeah. Huh? Cotyledons, the seed leaves. The seed leaves inside the seed. When the seedling germinates, right, the first 2 leaves are the cotyledons, and then it starts to send up true leaves. Right? Ideally. Well, I can tell you, yes, if it is, these tomato seedlings are normally ready in 3 to 4 weeks. So it's not a long time. So it's not a big ask to say the cotyledons should be attached. All right? And I've had several instances where I hope I'll be able to show you on a slide. All right, these are some 4-week-old tomato seedlings on the morning of a transplant. All right? Look at the size of the leaves. Look at the next slide. These are some 3-week-old romaine lettuce seedlings grown under the right condition, ready for transplant. When these are planted out, 5 weeks later, you're reaping 1.5, 2 pounds and more romaine lettuce going to the market, right? When you start off with material like this, right, you almost start to count the dollars at the end of the road, because you know that you have start off with good material, and as long as you're going to be following the fertilizer recipe, follow a good pest management program, then at the time when, whether it is 42 days, 40 days, 90 days, or 120 days, whatever time the crop takes to mature, you will be harvesting good yield. The fact of the matter is that most persons, all right, this is a 4-week-old romaine lettuce seedling. Look at the size of the leaves. Look at the size of the root plug coming out of the 72 cell. When you plant this, whether in the greenhouse or in the open, the plant already have a root system established. It have an established root system, and provided you provide sufficient moisture, the root system will expand, and once the root system expands, you start to feed it the essential nutrients. And this farmer used to reap romaine lettuce 5 weeks after transplant at 2 pounds, 2.5 pounds. Because you start off with good material. Next slide. All right, seedling containers. We have right? I showed you these. And said these are the nurserymen, darling, because them sell the seedlings on a per seedling basis, and in this production space, they're selling you, they're charging you whatever they're charging you, but this is 200 plants being produced in the same space as the 105 in this, and 72 in the 72 cells. when these plants start to grow, before they reach 2 weeks, you start to get what is called mutual shading and etiolation, meaning that the neighboring plants, both neighboring plants, the leaves start to intersect and covering the surface of the other leaves. When a leaf surface is covered, it means that the capacity of the leaf to manufacture food is substantially reduced. Right? The size of the cell is such that you have to water them every day. And those persons who experience with nursery production will know that the lower the frequency of watering is the less likely it is for you to get issues like damping off and that kind of thing inside the nursery. The bigger cells hold more moisture, more nutrients, and you don't have to water them as frequent as if you're watering as these. Right? Usually, when you take out these in the morning, you transplant and put them in the field. Some of them lying down. So instead of a firm, compact, vigorous plantlet that stands up, right? It lays down, and sometimes whether the soil or the plastic mulch burn the leaves, burn the plant, and you have to go in and do transplant, right? Which is you're putting in more material in the field than is required. If you just take one and pass it around, want to take one and pass it around, take one and pass it around. Just look, take one and pass it around. With the larger.
With this one as well, as I've experienced by seedling with this one, whenever I try to remove one from the cell,
the shell up.
it will shell out.
Of course.
From the other.
Of course. So we're saying that you should look towards the larger cell size, produce a more vigorous seedling, a more viable seedling, and the little difference in the amount of growing media or germination mix or propagation mix that you use doesn't make that difference. The more vigorous plants more than compensate, right? And even if you have to buy the seedlings with a bigger root ball at a higher price, you're better off, because you don't have to go back and doing your supplying. Supplying is a waste of material, right? If you notice that the bigger cell tend to have in between each cell there are breather holes. Yeah. All right. So the bigger cells have breather holes that they allow gaseous exchange. And I remember we was talking this morning, and I think it's the first presentation, the importance of the root having the ability to breathe. Right? When you pack 100 and 200 of those in the same space where you have 75, you literally have 3 plantlets in the same space that is occupied by one. Right? So there's less competition, less stretching for light. And so, next slide. All right, we discussed this already. The smaller cells, well, result in reduced cost for seedling, but produces smaller, less vigorous seeds. The larger cells hold a greater volume of media, retain more water and nutrients, require less frequent watering. Larger root volumes result in the production of stockier seedlings with the ability calorie transport shock and produces earlier and higher crop yield per plant. Next slide. All right, plant species vary in their space and nutrient requirement. The smaller cells, like 200, if you're doing things like onion and scallion seedlings, or you're doing thyme, you could do it in that. But if you're looking at the 128 for your leafy vegetables and the 72 for your fruit vegetables. Next slide. So these are well, this one is a 162. So next slide. This is a 200 cell, no breeder hole, get etiolated weak seedlings and low yields. Next slide. These are some pepper seedlings grown in 200 cell trays. You see how closely packed they are and shading each other. Next slide. These are the 72 cell trays, the breeder holes between the cells. They produce bigger seedlings and good yields. Next slide. These are some 72 cell, some seedlings, pepper seedlings in 72 cell trays. You see the spacing, and at that stage when they're ready for transplant, you're not getting the kind of shading that you get in the first one. Because you have 3 seedlings growing in the space where 1 would be growing in this. Next slide. And this is the comparison. Right, next slide. All right. Well, oh boy. Yeah, that. Planting trays are reusable. And I don't know, but my experience working around farms is that a lot of the workers don't seem to understand that. Right? They should be properly handled and cared for to be used for many, to be sterilized and used for many different crops. Next slide. Yeah, this is a photograph I took yesterday on a farm in Bernard Lodge, St. Catherine, right? Where the workers, the pepper seedlings they took from these already start to bear, but they just took them out of the tray and threw them one side in the bush. I just saw that and figured that since I come in here with this presentation, it will be a useful thing. If you notice, this one here and those are there look like something run over them, right? But they're farm assets and they should be protected. You can reuse them many times as long as you care them. Next slide. Sanitization procedure if you're going to be reusing them. They should be sanitized after each use to prevent the spread of disease organisms. They should be soaked in clean water to loosen soil particles and wash. Using soap and water, and then you give them a 10-minute soak in a 10% household bleach or 35% hydrogen peroxide solution in a 50-gallon drum. And after 300 trays, your water would have been contaminated. You change it. Or even if it's not contaminated, just to ensure safety. And then you rinse in clean water and air dry them and store them in a cool, dry place until you need them again. All right, next slide. Next slide. All right. We talk about growing media, meaning the material in which the seedlings will grow, usually comprise of coyote dust, perlite, vermiculite, and a wetting agent to ensure that you're able to enhance the capacity of the seedling cells to hold moisture. All right. They need to provide anchorage to the plant. All the nutrients in a state that all the nutrients that's it and ready available for the plants, facilitate gaseous exchange by the roots. It's important that whatever media you're growing in is not too compacted so the roots can breathe. And that is why when you have flooding, the plants tend to die because the water displaces the air spaces in the soil, replace it with water, and the roots literally can't breathe. It's like somebody holding your head in a tub of water. It should allow the roots to grow and expand without impediment, capacity to hold water for the plant, and very importantly, should be free of pests, diseases, and weed seeds. And that is why you need to buy sterile growth media that are exposed to high temperatures for a reasonable time to ensure that your media is free of these organisms that will. All right, potting mix. All right, sometimes you talk to, and I'm doing this because to make sure we leave here clear. Sometimes you go to the farm store, and what you really want is some media to start your seedlings. But you ask the farm store man for a bag of potting mix. He's going to sell you a bag of potting mix. And that is what you call for, right? Well, potting mix and germination mix or propagation mix are comprised of the same basic material. It is a matter of the presentation, right? The potting mix tend to be heavier, coarser in texture, and is suitable for providing support for the continued growth of established ornamentals or fruit tree grown in containers, used for transplanting seedlings into containers if you're going to be growing the seedlings in a say a 7-pound grow bag rather than planting out in the field. Or if you're planting them in a 11 by 11 by 16 plastic bag. It's often constituted by compost, tree bark, perlite, and other ingredients to retain moisture and nutrients, provide good water holding capacity and aeration for established plants. But let me tell you, the potting mix usually have wood chip and pieces of tree bark in it, not finely divided, and you know the size of an average vegetable seed. If you have a situation where one of those pieces of chip or bark sit on top of a seed, there's no way that seed can germinate. And if it does, it comes out so weak that it doesn't really have the kind of vigor to give you a productive plant. Germination mix. So when you leave here, you need to know the difference between a potting mix. If it's seedling you're going to be producing, you want germination mix. If it's, you grow some crotons or you grow some azaleas or any other ornamental and you want to pot them out, it's potting mix. Because the wood chip and the pine bark will not sit on the seed and prevent it from germinating. All right? Next slide. Next slide, run it up. And when we go outside this afternoon for the practical, I'll show you what a germination mix. It's a lightweight, soilless medium designed for optimal sprouting and early seed development. There's nothing in that mix that should prevent a seed from emerging. It is constituted by some of the same stuff. The materials are usually pre-sterilized to kill pathogen. And I tell you, some of these, in the case of perlite is produced by a process that heat volcanic rock up to 1700 degrees Fahrenheit. And the pathogen can survive at that. And the fine grounding of the germination mix facilitate easy filling of the seedling trays and facilitates the emergence of this seedling. Next slide. All right. This is what planting mix look like? See these big pieces, chunks? The germination mix is finely divided. No, man. Minister, they're trying to rush me, saying, and I'm telling them that you want to be educated. All right. Don't laugh, don't laugh. Don't laugh. Eh? Come again? I'm not hearing you. But anyway, the fact of the matter is that this is an enlightened minister who want to get a grasp of this subject. All right, we're moving. Move next slide. The seed sowing process. You can skip that. It can be done manually or filling the trees. And we need to, this is what the practical is going to be based on this evening. The substrate, meaning the germination mix or propagation mix, or they call it out there, should not be too moist or too dry. You should use that to fill each cell of the tray. At the top, we're using a straight edge to level it. Moistened media. Slight pressure should be applied to the plug to avoid excessive air spaces. The corners of the tray should be checked to ensure that they are filled. Proceed. We're going to be going through this in practice shortly. Next slide. This is a person filling a seed tray manually. You can move on. This is a machine that I saw in Costa Rica, actually filling the seed tray, filling hundreds of trays per hour. I mean, putting the media, putting the seeds, and when it comes out, it goes to a germination chamber. Next slide. All right. In order to ensure that you put one seed in each cell, you have to do what is called marking of the seed trays. Meaning that you have to create an indentation in the tray. You could use a piece of stick, you could use the fingers, and in some places where they do it commercially, they actually make a designated marker made of wood. The depth of the hole depends on the size of the seed. But as a rule, you don't want to bury the seeds too deep, so that you wouldn't want to go below 1 or 2 times the width of the seed. Next slide. All right, if you're going to be planting an area that requires 5,000 seeds, 5,000 seedlings, all right, and the germination percentage on the package is 80. It means that you expect to lose 20% of the seeds that you buy. So if you buy 5,000, you're going to be ending up with 20% less as viable seeds. The package tell you. Also, when you're planting, it's not everything that germinates might be fit for planting. And in my experience, but maybe 10%, you should be factoring up about 10% of those that germinate that will not make it to the field. Because it don't make sense you put a seedling in the field to sit down on your fertilizer, sit down on your water, and all the other expenses. And at the end of the day, the yield per crop, the yield per plant is not what you expected. So you want to get seedlings in the field that will. So it means that you would have to sow an extra 30%. 20% because of the germination percentage, and 10% because you might have to cull. You have to throw away some of what germinate. It might germinate, might be a plant, but it might not make the cut. And so the total requirement would be the 5,000 seeds that you require, plus an additional 30%. In this case, it will be 6,500. So if you want to have an established area with 5,000 vigorous, viable plants, you'd have to sow 6,500 seeds. Everybody following that? 'Cause it's very important that you understand that. All right, next step. Seeds should be done, sowing of seeds should be done by a diligent person in an adequate and comfortable surrounding. And let me tell you something. You want persons who are diligent, pay attention to detail, and in my experience, ladies sow the best seeds. You know that? I mean, sometimes the men will put all 3 seeds in a cell and cover it. Knowingly, they'll do it knowingly. The ladies will meticulously put their thing. Marking off planting holes in slate shells. 1 seed should be placed per cell. Seed should be lightly covered and irrigate with room temperature water, somewhere 85 degrees Fahrenheit. Next slide. Yeah, these are some ladies in Costa Rica sowing seed trays. Move on. Next slide. This is the seed. This cell was a 72 cell that was actually sown using a mechanical device that we had. But we have some ladies that couldn't match that performance. Next slide. All right, the germination chamber. After you sow the seeds, you have to take them to a germination chamber where you provide them with darkness, heat, all right, to ensure that they break the dormancy of the seeds. Because normally, when seeds are getting mature, the plants secrete abscisic and phenolic acids that will let them remain alive, but in a state, in an attenuated state for a long time, as long as they are in the right conditions. But once you sow them, you want to break dormancy. And ideally, a constant temperature of 85 degrees Fahrenheit and humidity of about 90% should be maintained. These enclosed spaces range from a special room, a special container, and I've seen many successful cases where black polyethylene garbage bags have been used. In fact, I have some pictures to show. They help to improve the germination percentages, uniformity of seedlings, and to protect the seeds from vermin, rats, lizards, insects. Next slide. This is a purpose-built germination chamber and a commercial nursery in Costa Rica. Right? The seedling trays are loaded onto trolleys and pushed into the room where they control the humidity and the temperature. And then, based on the crop type, you plant, they're taken out when they're ready to be removed. Next slide. Yeah. These are some seedlings being germinated in black garbage bags. And at that time, this farm was the single largest greenhouse farm in Jamaica back in 2009. Next slide. All right. So we're talking about seed dormancy. We're saying that the seeds, when they mature, the plant produces hormones, the abscisic acid, the gibberellins, and the auxins, and these promote dormancy. During the abscisic acid promote dormancy, while the gibberellins, in the presence of water, promote germination by countering the effect of abscisic acid. The auxins play a regulatory role by enhancing the effects of the abscisic acid. So, the seeds have an inbuilt mechanism. Go ahead. All right, so some of these we have discussed already. The factors affecting the germination rate, quality of the seed. If the seed not good, you can't get good germination percentages. That makes sense? The seed bed or growing media preparation. If the growth media is not correct, if it have huge chunks or chips that could sit on a seed and suppress it, you will not get high germination percentages. If you bury them too deep, they take a longer time to emerge, and when they emerge, they're weak and not vigorous. Moisture availability, you should never allow more than a quarter of an inch of the germination media in the seed tray to dry before you irrigate. You don't want to allow the plants, the seedlings don't undergo stress. Go back. No, you're taking me too far away. No, go back. You're going forward, you're going back. Yeah. Temperature, we say you want about 85 degrees Fahrenheit temperature to stimulate the production of the abscisic acid. And you want to ensure that the darkness will stimulate the seeds to germinate. It will actually simulate, like if it was planted in the soil and covered, you actually get a simulation of that. And the media must be aerated. You must have sufficient oxygen. So the roots can germinate, can breathe. Next slide. All right. This is showing the stages of the germination phases from the hypocotyl and the epicotyl of the seed emerging till it comes out, start to produce roots until the epicotyl emerge above, and then you start to produce true leaves. And these are what you call cotyledons, and these are the true leaves. After the plant set the second set of new true leaves, it is time for, you can transplant them at that time. 4 to 6 true leaves. Proceed. That is a monocot, this is a monocot, something like a grass or a corn or something. Proceed. It's basically the same process. And these are some temperature regimes, time and temperature regime for different crops, how long it takes at those temperatures to germinate. Of course, we have some lettuce varieties that literally requires a difference. You put them in a cool, dark place for 24 hours before you take them back out, because they require. There's a process called vernalization that these varieties are adapted to. And these are the number of days in the germination chamber for different crops. Go ahead. And when it says germination here, it means the breaking of the seed coat. Right? From the seed coat is broken, germination sets in. Of course, you don't think she'll take up time? All right, so you should be examining the trays frequently, 2 times a day is suggested. And once germination is observed, all the trays that went into the chamber on that day should be taken out and put in a grow-out area. And of course, the seedlings should be fed and nurtured to develop clean and vigorous plants until the 4 to 6 true leaf stage before transplanting. What it means is that, and when we're looking at nutrients, there is no need for you to apply supplemental nutrients to the seedlings before you start to see true leaves. The cotyledons or the seed leaves have enough reserves to sustain the seedling up to that point. It is after you start to see the true leaves before you start to fertilize the plant. Look. Next slide. All right, so these are recently germinated tomato seedlings. So as long as you see these, you don't have to see the plant standing up inside here. As long as the seed coat is broken, and you see you take them out of there and put them in the growth areas. All right. Next slide. No. All right. These are some sweet pepper seedlings. Just come up. They are still in the cotyledon stage, but they're getting ready to produce some good sweet peppers. Next slide. These are some tomato seedlings that spend too much time in the germination chamber. And so they come out looking etiolated, twisted, and unthrifty. Yeah, leggy. And they will not, no matter how you try fight with these, I bet you start over the process. They're not going nowhere. Next slide. All right, so we're saying that these are what vigorous seedlings look like. Right? Thick stems, dark green leaves, sturdy, and looking like they're ready to produce. Next slide. Look at the size of the stem. And my brother was asking about the cotyledon. This is the cotyledon. Still intact. Cotyledon still intact. If you notice, remnant of the seed coat is on the tip of this cotyledon. Right? So there are 6 true leaf stage, the cotyledon intact. Those are the kind of start that you would want to your production process. Next slide. All right, proceed. All right, the frequency of water. No, go back 1 second. Go back one step. The frequency of watering varies with cell size, growing media, ventilation, and weather conditions. You should water should be applied only where it is necessary. Where the top quarter-inch of the cell dries out, water should be applied to the top of the tray if you are using a top-down watering, and if you're using capillary irrigation from the bottom to the top of the cell. Irrigation should be done early in the day for 4 days to dry out before nightfall. In fact, ideally, you should avoid getting your seedlings, the foliage of your seedlings, wet. Because remember, fungal spores and bacterial spores are pervasive. They're all over the place. And if they're present on the leaves and there's no moisture, they won't germinate. Once they get sufficient moisture, they'll germinate and create disease problems. Next slide. Seedling nutrition. All right. Many persons, many nursery operators believe that by feeding 20-20-20 to the plants, they are satisfying the plants, the seedlings requirement for nutrients. The school of thought that I come from tells me that from the seedling reach the true leaf stage, it should start getting complete nutrients. And complete nutrients mean the 12 essential nutrients, the 6 macronutrients and 6 micronutrients that the plant require. I think I'm being hastened. All right. So after the germination chamber, after the growth room, you put them through a process called hardening. Hardening is basically designed to prepare them to deal with the vagaries of the commercial growing environment, whether it's a greenhouse or it's an open field. And plants are normally exposed to higher temperature and lower moisture regimes, but be careful. Don't mess with the fertilizer regime. right? Because you could create stunting of the plant. So when you're adding the plants, feed them in nutrients same way, right? But don't. So higher temperature, lower moisture, but they're getting the same nutrient feed. Next slide. All right, so during the hardening process, the physical and metabolic changes that occur within the plant help to minimize the effect of the transplant shock. You get reduced succulence of the plant stem, closing of the stomata, lowering of transpiration rate, reduced translocation rate, changes in the hormone balance. All right, so, and of course, the nutrient solution should be applied immediately after planting to enhance speedy establishment. So transplanting should be done when the plants are at the 4 to 6 true leaf stage. Right? They're able to feed themselves and continue. All right. We have some, we basically at the end, some little seeding. All right, thank you very much.
So Webster, look how them rush, man. Oh my God, that's how them stay. Ladies and gentlemen, can we applaud Mr. Webster, please? We do have some questions, and we're not all the way through yet with Mr. Webster's presentation, because we have the demonstration for the persons who can actually stay with us a little while longer on the outside. But I should tell you guys that the presentations are going to be made available, specifically this one. So for the persons who need to give their email addresses to the team at ISRATECH, make sure that you do so, please, so you can get the full presentation, right? Because we had to skip some slides, and there's a lot of important information that you don't want to miss. But thank you so much, sir. Okay. Well, thank you so much, sir. We appreciate you. Thank you. All right, you can just sit tight for us, sit close. Now, we could not have this event at all, right? We are talking about sustainable farming, and that's what this symposium is all about by ISRATECH. And as you saw from the promotions, we had the endorsement from our Honorable Minister, who drove all the way from Portland, because today is a day that we recognize our fishermen. And so he had, of course, obligations at 2 different ends of the island. So we're very happy that he still managed to make it to the middle of the island just in time, sat through a portion of Sir Webster's presentation, and I saw him nodding along, so he too was learning some things. So ladies and gentlemen, can we put our hands together, please, for Honorable Minister of Agriculture, Fisheries and Mining, the Honorable Floyd Green.
Thank you very much, Debbie, and I know that you, as usual, would have done an exceptional job. I know Benjamin was here, but have had to leave. Mr. Murray, our president of the JAS Manchester, I see that you've had wonderful presentations. How has it been so far? Yes, and when I called Benji to say, does it make sense? He gave me the rundown of how many presentations he had left, and I looked at the time and I said, all right, I can make it. Now, if I knew that Mr. McPherson was in the batch of presenters, I would have slowed down. Because if you know Webster McPherson, 1, he has a wealth of information. 2, he's extremely passionate. And 3, I can't ask him to stop because he went to school with my father. So he will report me. So you see, I just sit out there nice and quiet, waiting for him to finish. But let's give the presenters a big round of applause. I really like the approach that ISRATECH has taken. I really like the fact that they've organized this symposium. I think it is extremely important. And I like how they put it out for people who are interested to apply and to share in this symposium, because what it means is that the people who have come to participate are serious about agriculture and are serious about their agricultural enterprise and wanting to ensure that they maximize their investments in agriculture so that they will generate real wealth and continue to feed our country. These are the initiatives that the government endorses. These are the initiatives that the government wants to partner with. This is why I wanted to be here, to say to ISRATECH, this is a job well done. Because, give them a big round of applause. Because we have said that we are embarking on a new era of agriculture. And that new era focuses on transformation and resilience. But no matter how much the government does, we can't do it alone. And I think all of us now appreciate that food security is everybody's business. And that no matter what other profession you were interested in, whatever profession you may be a part of, ultimately the most important people in any society are the people who feed us. And if we doubted it, we saw the reality in COVID-19 when our borders closed and everybody said, where will we get our food from? And with all the uncertainty in the world today, now more than ever, being able to secure your food and having a strong agricultural sector is critical. And we do know that there have been fundamental challenges that has held us back from having that food security that we've longed for. And in this new era of transformation, we are trying as a government to treat with some of those fundamental issues. Again, some of them we know from time immemorial. And some of them require us to take different approaches, to take some of the approaches that ISRATECH has taken, which champions innovation, champions technology, which champions ensuring that we do things differently in a changing climate. And I don't change. If you're in agriculture, you recognize. In fact, right now, what we are seeing is just such variation. So I was looking at the figures last week in relation to our rainfall between March, April, and May. And, if you were in Westmoreland, you would be convinced that all is well and that you're having a lot of rain. And if you're in North St. Elizabeth, you would be convinced that all is well and that the rain is going well. But when you look at the figures and when you look at what's happening, quite frankly, to us in South St. Elizabeth, we have fully gone back into drought. In fact, definitely, I can tell you the figures. In fact, we are 68% below our 30-year normal in terms of rainfall for the month of May. And that goes across multiple parishes. In fact, Manchester only achieved 66% of their 30-year average. So I want you to appreciate what we're saying. The average rainfall that you would expect in May for Manchester, they're 66% of that average. For a parish like St. Elizabeth, we're 70% of that average. For Clarendon, they are 38% of that average. So we are seeing that we are fully back into drought, especially in the south parts of our parishes. So one of the good things is that the ministry now does those tracking, and we work with our Ministry of Environment, and we respond. Now we respond as proactively we can, and once we see that we're tracking a certain direction, we don't wait until there's a full-fledged drought. We now intervene. So for example, we have already dispatched $10 million to do trucking in Manchester and St. Elizabeth based on what we picked up last week. And that's part of a broader drought mitigation strategy that we've embarked upon, where we're allocated $100 million now for us to reach to our farmers. We'll be providing not only drought support, we'll be providing support in terms of storage, we're providing some support in terms of building out catchment tanks, because the rain will come. And we want to ensure that when the rain comes, that you are able to store and utilize. So in fact, in Manchester last year, we would have done 32 with farmers, where the farmers do the excavation, and under the ministry's program, we provide them with the pond liner for them to have their catchment area. So if they get any rain, they can utilize that for their own properties. And we're doing some of that. And one of the reasons why I really wanted to be here today is because, as I've said to the ministry, we know that the drought will come. So let us not wait until the drought gets here to chart a response. So last year, we ordered 1,300 irrigation kits from ISRATECH in preparation for this year's drought. And Benjamin told me that they're ready to go. So I told him I'm coming to look at them, right? So we all see it together. So our 1,300 irrigation kits are ready, having been done by ISRATECH, and we will start distribution of those kits, in fact, Friday. So that, again, our farmers will have some storage capacity and will use the technology to efficiently utilize the limited water that they have available in these times. These are the focuses of our new era of agriculture. And again, how do we treat some of the long-standing challenges? I won't go into all of the irrigation projects that we're doing because we know access to water now is fundamental. But suffice to say, for the last 6 years, we've invested about $10 billion in expanding our irrigation networks. And if you are in this neck of the woods, you can go a little bit down the hill to a place called Essex Valley, where we've outlined a brand new irrigation network. All we're doing now is waiting on the pumps. We will get going next year. But not only have we done 5 wells, and we're going to be irrigating about 1,200 hectares of land. Irrigation has been a major part of our drive in this new era. But one of the long-standing challenges that we haven't fixed, that we are now really focused around, is how do we treat with the issues as seasonal farmers, where we go through these periods of gluts and shortages. And we all know it. You know, every few months, you see some farmers come on and they say, boy, we have tomatoes spoiling in the field. And then every 2 months later, you see consumers come on and say, boy, tomato price too high. One of the big issues that we haven't dealt with over the years is our issue in relation to storage, and ensuring that we have appropriate storage so that we can expand the shelf life of whatever is produced, so that we will have a consistency of supply. And we are taking real steps to fix that. So as we speak now, not even 5 minutes up the road, we are building a brand new storage, spending $124 million, about 350 square meters, a cold storage facility right at Content, right? Additionally, Coleyville has been a storage that was established a long time ago, but unfortunately was allowed to fall into disrepair. We're going to be spending $300 million on the Coleyville facility this year to put it back into operation to serve the farmers, especially in this belt. And the good news is that, having learned the lessons, all our storage will be powered by renewable energy. So we're putting renewable energy in the storage in Content, we're putting renewable energy in Coleyville, and only have backup systems that we will utilize where necessary. But we're also doing a massive one in Essex Valley, 24,000 square feet, about 22 containers of produce it will be able to hold. And that will not only do cold storage and ambient storage, but it will also provide an area for processing, for puree processing, for brine preservation, so that ultimately, hopefully, we'll partner with one of you, some of you. We want to partner with the private sector. The government is putting in the assets. We don't expect to run the assets. We want the private sector to run the assets, but clearly with some parameters so that it does serve a public good, so that when people say to me all the time, boy, Minister, it's mango season, we see so much mangoes going to waste. We want somebody to come and put in a puree facility. We've done the infrastructure for you already. We want you to partner with the government to get this done. I could speak to you about what we're doing with the agri-parks, and I'll say a little bit, but if you haven't heard, one of our new aspirations now is to ensure that in every single parish, you have some land earmarked for people to do agriculture. Right? We take it for granted, especially in some of our rural parishes, but especially with what we're seeing now, we want to have an agri-park in every parish. So, for example, Manchester does not now have an agri-park. We will ensure that Manchester has an agri-park. We've already started the process. We've already started the process of working with the NHT and the NLA, where instead of us giving them lands, we're taking back some lands because there are lands that are ideal for agriculture. And in fact, we've taken back a lot of lands in St. Mary. We've taken back some lands in St. Anne. In fact, we've now are embarking on our first ever agri-park in St. Anne that we're doing about 670 acres in St. Anne that we're putting in an agri-park. And clearly, all of our agri-parks now are being done with the learnings of the agri-parks before. We've done agri-parks before, but part of the challenge is that we did not put in sufficient infrastructure to ensure that the people who invest in the agri-parks can do well. So if you see what we're doing in Essex Valley, that storage is a part of the agri-park. So it doesn't make sense you're building out 1,200 acres, hectares of irrigation land, and you don't have storage, you don't have processing, you don't have a road network, you don't have fencing, some of those things that we are working on now with our agri-parks. Additionally, the other thing that we're doing is where we already have farmers operating. We've been saying to the NHT, the NLA, if those are your lands, give it to the Ministry of Agriculture. And you don't have to say, it's been happening. In fact, we've gotten 400 acres again in St. Anne, where we had 55 farmers that were occupying nowhere near the 400 acres. The 55 farmers probably took up about 80 acres. But when we went to the NLA, we said, give us the entire parcel, give us the 400 acres, so that we can regularize the farmers. And those 55 farmers now have leases for all the acreages that they take on, and every single one of them expanded their leasehold. And you would understand why. Because now that you have tenureship, now that you have something that you can call your own in terms of your investment, they expanded. And we're doing that throughout. So we are earmarked that over the next 5 years, we should have one agri-park at least in every single parish. And we've already started to talk to the bauxite companies in Manchester, right, to say some of the land that used to be farming land that are not going to be mined and that haven't been mined, let us utilize it. And even where you have mined out land, we have a very good model where we use protected agriculture, just up the road, put in a greenhouse cluster, use one of the pits that were dug, use that for water storage, and make the farmers farm. And I can tell you, when I went to visit those farmers recently, I was doing some work for my sectorial. You know, farmers don't really tell you when things go very good, right? I tell people, I always tell my team, you have to understand how farmers speak. So they go there and say, how things? I say, things not too bad. Just know, say, they make millions, right? Millions. And, you know, I went and I said to the greenhouse farmers, so how things go? How was it? The beauty with that cluster, what they did is that they took off their plastic for hurricane burial. So they were able to quickly come back up. And they focus on cherry tomatoes. They focus on sweet peppers. Now, if you work out what was the price for sweet peppers in November, December, and when I went into one house, I said to the lady, how long you been reaping now? And this was 2 months ago, May. And she said, I'm going to start reaping about December. You know, she had to take a little time talk it. I said, so how things? Not bad. One man said, disagreed, but I tell you the truth. If we say no good, but I tell a lie. Right? So the reality is that we have models that we can now utilize to establish our agri-parks in a way that they can be extremely profitable. There are a number of other things, but I'm going to stop because I always find that when you come into an area like this, people might have some questions, and it's probably better I take some questions. I know some of you had wanted to go and heard that I was coming and said that you would wait a little bit, and I really appreciate that. But you never had a choice because Webster wouldn't allow you to go. So I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to take some questions. And if there's maybe one more point that I want to make at the end, I'll make it. So, there was a lady before you. Yes.
Good afternoon, Minister. I'm so happy and heartened to hear about the partnerships that are going on. And I'm just going to ask you if you could just take an eye and peer over to 7 Golden Avenue, the Jamaican Association for Intellectual Disabilities, or the School of Hope, where we are revamping our farming project to allow our students and adults to be independent, and we really need some assistance.
So please write me up about that. Okay, great. To my office? Okay, I'll check that. I'm very happy to hear that. So we do have a special focus on our schools that focus on special needs. In fact, we did a lot of good work with our school for the deaf that is up the road. In fact, if you didn't see it, we actually worked with the Heart Trust NSTA, and introduced a tractor driving program for the deaf students at the school for the deaf. And we have certified 30 of them in tractor operations. They are superb, right? And in fact, the last time I was there, they had some damage to their greenhouse, and we're building back the greenhouse for them. So, School of Hope, we're ready. You came to the right place at the right time, and we'll get it done, right? So we definitely want those institutions, one, to be able, you know, as I said at the School for the Deaf, agriculture is for everybody, right? And you would be amazed of the talent. And ultimately, we also want those institutions to be self-sufficient in the food, at least some of the food, because we do know the costs to operate those institutions. So thank you for that, and we'll definitely help. And Kenny, yeah, good.
All right, Minister, thank you so much for always supporting farmers, and thanks for being here. It means a lot. Again, thanks for the work that you're doing with the agri-park. My question is relating to agri-park, because I'm currently on an agri-park, and it's a two questions. One, I don't really know the law, but I think it is prohibited for us to shoot animals like cows. We're having issues, big issues. Amity. Every single time farmers come together, put up the fencing, we don't know where the cows are coming from, right? The other thing, yes, it is very good that we get the lands. But when you look on the return on investment, for example, a crop that comes to maturity in less than 3 months, the return on investment, you have a longer time to wait. So when we have to spend a lot of money to pay like $12,000 per hour for a backhoe to clear the land of some big trees, it's really not making sense for us. Some of us, we go to the banks, we borrow money. The banks really, sometimes they don't lend you money unless you have an additional source of income where you can prove that you can pay them monthly. So we need help. Yes, if it's even to increase the cost for the agri-park per acre, we will pay it once we have proper road, we have light, we have fence to keep out the 2-foot puss, and we have the things that we need. We are willing to pay more money. Just give us the infrastructure. Clear the land for us at least, please. Yeah. Fence the place and increase the money. We will pay.
So a couple of things, and very good points, and I'll try to go to all of them quickly. All right. In relation to our agri-parks in general, as I had highlighted, one of the challenges with the older agri-parks is that they weren't built out with the sort of infrastructure that they needed. So we're trying to fix that. In fact, we have taken a project to the Ministry of Finance to see if we can get the resources to speed up our pace of fixing those issues. Because if we continue to just do it from our budget, you know, it's going to be a slow fix. Because each year we try and do some, but what you want and what we're asking the Ministry of Finance for is to treat it as a program. We've identified where are all the deficiencies, and if we need $1 billion, let us get $1 billion, we projectize it, and we say 3 years, we just fix our agri-parks, right? So that is going through the process. In fact, we got preliminary approval for that, and now we have to do some more work on building that out. My expectation is that we will go back, so we now have a public investment infrastructure pathway that doesn't go through your regular budget. So you can get additional money. So we've used that, for example, to get $1.2 billion for Bodles. And then because we were successful in that, we went back and we got $6.4 billion for research stations. So we're really using a pathway. In fact, the last meeting we have, I was very proud of the 8 projects that were before the committee, 5 were agriculture. Because I've said to the team, there's a contingency put aside for projects of that nature. And agriculture always needs big investment. So we're working on that. In the interim, we're going to be doing some small things, right? I am very aware of the amity issue, and the AIC is going to be doing some work on the fencing. There is a bigger challenge in relation to stray animals, and I use stray in brackets, right? Which we have to find a way to get the municipal corporations to become a lot more active in the space. So the municipal corporations are the entity empowered to impound animals. They run the pounds, and you have to have an active pound. What should happen when an animal is quote-unquote strained and in contravention, it should be impounded, right? We have a big problem in St. Elizabeth, and anybody of you from South St. Elizabeth and my neck of the woods, you know we see it almost every day. One of the challenges that I know my municipal corporation had was finding the personnel that would take on the job of impounding those animals. Not a very easy job, right? But we've been working with the police. We have an issue in Westmoreland as well. So we have to find a way to treat with it, because a lot of our crop farmers are facing the brunt of that. So we'll work, and I've said to the AIC to engage both the police and our agricultural protection branch. If you don't know, we now have an agricultural protection branch in the JCF to engage the agricultural protection branch and the municipal corporation to see what can be done. Additionally, we're going to be getting some equipment for the agri-parks, right? Again, a lot of our agri-parks, unfortunately, did not have their own equipment and had to fall into the regular RADA pool that can't work, right? Because RADA already stretched. And the idea of the agri-parks is that the investors would have greater access to storage, to water, to equipment. So I think we're procuring now 4 tractors for our agri-parks, and Amity is a part of that, right? So you can look forward to that. And that is a part of, and this was a part, that's a part of a bigger drive. If you ask me what is one of our number 1 priorities for this year, is mechanization, right? When we started, RADA had 7 tractors for the entire island, right? RADA now has 20 tractors, and by the end of July, should have 24 tractors, right? And in addition, 5 backhoes. The ministry itself is buying a D9 because land clearing is a major issue, right? And again, if you're coming with a major investment and you're taking on 100 acres and you have big trees and you need, the ministry should be able to say, listen, we have a piece of equipment that you can utilize, right? The other thing that we're looking to do, we're going to be purchasing some drones, right? Because again, we all know, all of you here who are in agriculture know labor is a challenge. And it will continue to be a challenge. That's how these economies develop. And as our economy continues to develop, the people who I speak to now who want to get into agriculture, nobody wants to be a laborer. Everybody wants to own their own farm. Not a bad thing, but it means how do you treat with labor? So again, we have to use our drones now for fertilization, for clearing of the land in terms of chemical application. So we're purchasing some drones. We're also purchasing some one-man tractors, right? Walk-behind tractors, some augers, some rotavators. We are purchasing about 30 pieces of machinery this year in this budget, right? Because ultimately, we have to reach a stage that we're more efficient and more productive, right? It's not how much we have under production, but how much are we getting from what we have. So we're focused on that in a big way. The last thing that I'll say to you, we are working out a framework now to make land clearance, land preparation services more available. So the first part of that is what I said. We want at least each parish to have 2 or 3 that is theirs. The RADA can utilize. We want the agri-parks to have their own, that they don't have to go into the RADA system. But what we also plan to do is to work with the private sector, because we'll never have enough. This is the reality. So the idea now is you have people who own tractors, and as you know, your tractor is utilized for a short time period, right? So what we're doing now is to say we want to bring those onto a database that people can come through RADA to apply for a tractor just as they would for the RADA tractor, and we send one of the private tractors but you only pay the RADA rate, and we pay the rest. Right? So at the end of the day, you still get the service. You get the service in real time because, again, remember, time is money in agriculture. Big money. And sometimes people know that they missed the window, but they still, because they buy all the inputs already, they still plant and they don't get the yield, and then it's a vicious cycle. So we're definitely, in terms of the mechanization part, we have a big vision. And definitely we're going to keep doing this for the next few years. All right.
I heard you mentioning about orchard production in St. Mary. What was it? Breadfruit, ackee, mangoes, and coconut.
Yes.
If an investor wants to do it, what kind of assistance? And another question too. You talk about prairie larceny. How about people trying to capture the land without going on waste?
Without what?
This capture land business. You have a lot of man, when you're dark skin like me, that boy, don't feel so them come capture the land.
Boy.
You know, how we handle that?
Yeah, so the last one is a difficult question. And, you know, I sat through a presentation in Parliament yesterday and I was very afraid. We have to be careful. We have to be careful because sometimes we set some parameters that lead to some results that we speak about. All right, so the capture land, we'll have to talk about differently. But orchards, so we are focused on about, well, 3, as you just said, 4, right? And I'll add a 5th one because we're going to do some work around the 5th one this year. So we are focused on ackee, we are focused on breadfruit, we are focused on mangoes. We will give you the planting material, right? So you just tell us how much acres you're trying to do. I'm sure there will be a limit, but we don't have a limit right now, right? Because we are looking to plant out 1,000 acres each. So unless you come and you say you want enough for 1,000 acres, that's a problem. But as it is, we are looking for people to plant out. We actually have ackee plants right now that people can access. So all you have to do, how do you access it? You can approach RADA, right? Ask them for Loxley Waits. He is in charge of our National Fruit Tree Program, and they can help you, right? Oh, well, timber is forestry. But forestry is looking for people to do timber. The other 2, coconuts, if you're interested in coconuts, that's the Coconut Industry Board. Now is a good time to approach them. I've said to them, I've given them a directive that we are reducing the costs. We want to see more people in coconut. We cannot satisfy our demand for coconut water at all, right? We're nowhere near. And I want to tell you about coconut oil and what is happening. So that's the other thing. The last one that we're going to be doing some work around, we're looking to introduce a new variety of avocado, right? The Haas avocado. Very, very popular now, right? From Mexico, Domrep, doing very well across the world. We've done some pilots. We're looking for people who are willing to plant, right? If you're interested in aquaculture, we have programs around aquaculture. If you don't know, if you do a pond, we will, and you excavate and you put in your water, we'll give you the tilapia free for up to an acre, right? For you to start your journey in tilapia. Now, we're doing prawn. So if you're interested in growing out prawn, very, very big business. We import a whole lot of it. We can do it here. We have set up a prawn hatchery at the National Fisheries Authority. We've actually started distribution now. We've done our first batch of 275,000 that we're distributing for people who are interested. So if you're interested, those are some good areas.
Good evening, Mr. Minister.
I'll give you the number. Ask Colin for Loxley. Yeah. Yes, evening,
right.
Sorry.
So question, you have mentioned the agro park, right? So for me as a young farmer and many young persons out there, we don't live or have access to the agro parks. You do have programs, for example, the REEF program for young farmers. But for the young farmers, you need either lease some form of documents to show that you own the land, right? Or, you have authorization to use the land. What about us as farmers who do not have access to those documents? It's an issue to get those documents in those areas. What are you planning, or what are you planning for us as farmers? What can be done for us, or what are you planning on doing?
Yes, and it goes back to some of the points I've made about the agri-parks. It's one of the reasons why we're trying to ensure that you have an agri-park in each parish, right? Even when we do that, we do appreciate, based on the size of our parishes, we'll still have challenges. But where you have groups of farmers, a number of farmers operating on government land, write us about it. Because just as I told you in St. Anne, we've been able to get that land and to do leases for the farmers. So what we want to do is to regularize those plots. And I told you about St. Anne. We've done it for St. Mary. We've done it for Lower Lane in Portland. We've done a lot over the since I've been minister. Because again, as I've said to the team, if you have an area that farmers have been there for decades and it's government owned, not private owned, it's a different thing. If it's government owned, it makes sense to regularize that. Because the people have already shown that the land is profitable, because nobody's staying there if it's not doing well, and you need the support, but you can't get the support without regularization. So if you have that, then you can do that. The other thing that I'll tell you that we're doing, we're trying to make the agri-parks easier for young people to access, right? So as minister, I've already put in a policy that says 25% of our new agri-park land must be reserved for youth or women, right? Or people with disabilities, for my School of Hope person. So those are the categories. So once you are youth, woman, disability, you get a plus because you have some reserve land for you. But the young people have said to me largely that even though we've been doing that, to get into the agri-park now, you still have to prove some things. And it's important because unfortunately we've had agri-parks that all the agri-park is leased, and when you go in there, no production is happening, right? And it don't make no sense. So we've said you have to prove that you have a business plan. You have to prove that you have some capital, because agriculture does take money, things of that nature. But what I have found that the requirements for our youth are too high. So we're starting a new program called the Agri-Park Youth Startup Program that we're starting this year. That's live and ready now. If you are a youth and you're trying to get into our new agri-parks, we're doing a couple of things. Normally the leases are 5 years. Normally you have to show that you have 70% of the capital for you to embark on your agricultural enterprise. For youth, we've cut that to 35%. Normally, we've cut the lease rates in half for the first 2 years. Additionally, we will give you free land preparation for 2 acres for the first 2 years. Additionally, we'll give you free inputs for 1 acre, for 2 acres for the first year. We believe if we give you that setup, you can run your own show after that. Right, so that's a program that we're doing right now. Yeah, you can clap for that. Yeah. And it literally came from these discussions, literally. Came from, what's her name? Trishana. There's a young lady in Clarendon who came to something like this and raised the issue, and then she saw the Prime Minister and raised the issue when we were opening Parnassus, and we said we had to do something about it. Because as she said, she's willing, she have her business plan, but she don't have the 70%, and she can't pay the rent just starting out. So we're working with the youth, finding a way. Finish? Okay, all right, good. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your engagement. That you don't see what is happening, and send us and ask us what is happening here. And we will deal with it internally, or if we have a call Webster and say, Webster, what is happening here? So download the RADA app.
And you know, Webster have the answers for you. So Webster, in fact, we have an answer for you. We want to give you a prize, sir. Thank you so much for being here with us. Come on up for it. We know you have on gloves and everything because you're not done with us yet. But we want to gift you something for the presentation that is still ongoing. We are telling you thanks to Webster for your knowledge and your expertise. Oh, you want a girl? All right, good point. Miss Pat, Miss Grant, Sir Webster wants a girl to do the presentation. Himself don't want this sketch on any tape. There you go, sir. Sir Hopeton, you're next. Hopeton did a fantastic presentation earlier on. Thank you, Sir Webster. You see, Sir Webster have on him gloves in him ready for the same way. Sir Hopeton, thank you so much for your wonderful presentation on crop care. Excellently done. And for Artura and Mr. Yeah, they're gonna get some bonus monies according to sources, right? Okay. So as we are wrapping up, ladies and gentlemen, as I said before, Sir Webster has a display on the outside. That's the reason why he's wearing his gloves, right? So he wants to show you, and I'm sure he's gonna ask you to wash your hands and take part in it as well, the planting procedure as he was speaking about earlier on. So if you are able to, you're able to stay back a little while longer and get involved in that. We're trying to wrap up everything right now. So I have that question for you to win. The pipe, the pump. Yes, sir. Sir? Is the store is still open? Yes, the store is going to be open until 6 o'clock. Yes. All right, so quickly wrapping up. I want to give away the pump to you. The question is, right? The question is, give me the major sector outside of agriculture that ISRATECH also provides technology solutions for in Jamaica. He lifted his hand first. Sir? Energy? She's the head of marketing. I'm going to make her decide. She's a betting, gaming, and lotteries commission here. You get it now. You get it now. You get it now. Congratulations. Please come for your prize.
Oh, no. I'm going to tell you how to claim your prize.
Oh.
I'm going to tell you how to claim your prize.
Oh, so you're not going to get these prizes. You're going to get it.
I'm going to tell you how to claim your prize. Talk to me after.
You'll be able to get it afterwards. Yes.
We need to work with your pump.
And another thing as well, quickly as we wrap up, ladies and gentlemen, your certificate, because today is being seen as a training session. It's a symposium, yes, and we had presenters. But we want to certify your time here, right? Because we would have gathered a lot of information. So on your way out, we're asking you to just collect your certificate. Your name is on there with the ISRATECH stamp. I'm not sure what else is represented on there, but I think it's a very good look for you to frame and put up inside there. Add it to your profile name on Instagram and on Facebook and tell people, say, I have your training, courtesy of ISRATECH. Before we wrap up officially, I want Miss Pat to come over here and give us an official vote of thanks. All right? So just bear with us for a few more minutes, please.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. No, man, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I know it has been a long day, but we ensure that you were fed, not just mentally, but physically, right? Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, did you have an impactful day? Ladies and gentlemen, would you do it again? Good, good. Now, as we bring the day to a close, let me, on behalf of Benjamin Hodara, our CEO, who had to leave, let me say thanks to everyone who came out. Thank you to our speakers, our presenters. Thank you for sharing your expertise, your innovations, your bold ideas, Mr. McPherson. Thank you for challenging us. Now to our supportive Minister of Agriculture, who always shows up, even if it means traveling from Portland to Manchester just to be here. Thank you, not just to him, but to him and his team, because we know driving alone can be very tedious. So to the team who supports him, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, to you, our patient or ever amazing attendees or farmers or farm store owners or sponsors or partners, thank you so much for coming out in your numbers, and not just coming out, but for sharing and for asking the questions and for just interacting with us. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, could we have done today without our ever graceful moderator? Yes. And of course, we have a little something, something for her. Not true. She deserves it because we've been giving things away to everybody. Everybody gets a discount card. Everybody. So if you don't get a discount card yet, make sure you grab it before you go. So of course, we have to give her something.
I don't want a bottle of liquor and I want a pump.
Debbie, thank you so much. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, go on YouTube, like, share, and subscribe to Farm Chicks and to ISRATECH TV. All right, make sure you subscribe to those two. Now, ladies and gentlemen, today would not have been possible without our planning team. And so to the persons at the back, our hard-working staff, who ensured that you not just came and got good presentations, but they were professional and they treated you well, yes? You felt welcomed, yes? Give the ISRATECH team a round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, when we leave here this evening, may we not only discuss the